The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in chaos. Representatives from 47 species filled the amphitheater, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony that the translation matrix struggled to process. At the center of the circular chamber stood Ambassador Chun Wei, her dark eyes scanning the assembled aliens with an expression that made several of them shift uncomfortably in their seats, pods, and floating platforms. The human delegation will explain their refusal to accept our ceasefire proposal, announced High Arbiter Veshkol, his crystalline body refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns across the walls. His tone carried the weight of someone who had negotiated peace for 3 centuries and had never encountered such Tinance. Chen Wei stepped forward, her boots clicking against the polished stone floor. Behind her, the holographic display showed burning worlds, shattered stations, and the debris fields where human colonies once thrived. You want an explanation? Look at the evidence we've submitted. 23 colonies, 47 billion souls, gone. A ripple of discomfort passed through the assembly. The Taraxi representative, a being resembling an enormous mantis with pearl-white carapace, clicked its mandibles. The Krell Empire has offered reparations. They have agreed to territorial concessions. The war has cost both sides dearly. Reparations, Chen Wei repeated, her voice deadly quiet. You're offering us currency and empty space for 47 billion lives. Tell me, Counselor Trax, how much is your hatchling worth? Give me a number, and I'll write you a credit transfer right now. The Taraxi recoiled as if struck. Several other counselors began speaking at once, their outrage filling the chamber. High Arbiter Veshkol's body flashed with agitated colors as he called for order. Ambassador Chun. Such provocative language serves no purpose, he said, his translated voice somehow managing to convey disappointment. We understand humanity's grief. Every species here has known loss. But the Krell have been brought to heal. Their military is shattered. Their emperor has offered unconditional surrender. Continuing this war serves only to create more suffering. Chun Wei pulled up her personal display, ignoring protocol. Images filled the air around her, each one a testimony to horror. A classroom on New Shanghai, tiny desks still arranged in neat rows, now nothing but ash. A hospital on Kepler 442b, where evacuation shuttles never arrived in time. A playground on Ross 128, where children's laughter would never sound again. The Krell didn't just attack military targets, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. They bypassed our defensive fleets. They specifically targeted civilian populations. They broadcast the massacres, counselors. They wanted us to watch our families die. They wanted us to feel helpless. The Valorian ambassador, a being of flowing energy contained within a magnetic field, pulsed with concern. We have reviewed the evidence, Ambassador Chun. The Krell Empire's actions were unconscionable, but they acted under the leadership of Emperor Krull III, who has since been executed by his own people. The new government has repudiated these tactics. How convenient, Chun Wei said, her laugh bitter. They commit genocide, lose the war, kill their own leader, and suddenly they're reformed? They expect us to believe that? High Arbiter Veshkol's crystalline form dimmed slightly. Ambassador, please. In the 6,000 years of Galactic Council history, we have developed protocols for situations like this. Justice must be balanced with mercy. Punishment with rehabilitation. The Krell people should not suffer for the crimes of their former leadership. Then you don't understand humans at all, Chen Wei replied. We have a saying, por encourager les autres. It means we make examples. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity's citizens are not acceptable targets. Ever. A new voice entered the discussion. Ambassador Quellen of the Zephyri Collective. beings who communicated through elaborate color displays across their bioluminescent skin, spoke with what the translators rendered as deep sadness. We Zephyri experienced something similar 800 years ago. The Margoth horde destroyed 17 of our worlds before they were stopped. We accepted peace. We moved forward. The anger you feel now, Ambassador Chun, we understand it intimately. But it will consume you if you let it. Shan Wei turned to face the Zephyri ambassador directly. With respect, Counselor Quellen, the Margoth attacked you 800 years ago. Our colonies were burning 3 months ago. Some of them are still burning. There are human children in refugee camps who watch their parents die via forced broadcast. You're asking us to forgive and forget before we've even finished counting our dead. The council chamber fell silent. Even the ambient sounds of various species, life support systems seemed to fade into the background. High Arbiter Vesh Kal moved to the center of the floor, his presence commanding attention. Ambassador Chun, I must speak plainly. Humanity is a young species in galactic terms. You have been part of our community for less than 2 centuries. You have not yet learned the great truth that all elder civilizations know. Endless war leads only to endless suffering. The cycle must be broken. Then the cycle breaks after we're finished, Shin Wei said. Not before. Your fleet is currently positioned at the edge of Krell space. The High Arbiter continued, his tone growing more urgent. Our intelligence suggests you plan to strike their homeworld. This cannot be allowed. The Krell homeworld contains 12 billion civilians. If humanity commits this atrocity, you will become the very thing you claim to hate. Chun Wei's jaw tightened. The Krell homeworld contains the shipyards that built the fleet that murdered our people. It contains the factories that produced the weapons. It contains the citizens who cheered when their emperor broadcast our colonies burning. They celebrated, High Arbiter. They had parades. Not all of them, interjected the Luminar delegate, a being of pure thought housed in a mechanical body. Our sociological scans indicate that 43% of the Krell population opposed the war from the beginning. There were protests. Dissidents were imprisoned, executed. You would kill them too? They should have tried harder, Shan Wei said coldly. The chamber erupted again. Accusations of barbarism flew from multiple delegations. The Taraxi counselor stood, declaring that humanity was unfit for civilized society. Others called for sanctions, for quarantine, for humanity to be expelled from the Galactic Council entirely. Through it all, Chun Wei stood unmoved, her expression carved from stone. Finally, High Arbiter Vesh Kal raised his limbs, calling for silence. When order returned, he addressed Chun Wei directly. Ambassador, I am authorized to inform you that if humanity proceeds with this attack, the Galactic Council will have no choice but to intervene. We have fleets in position. We cannot allow genocide, regardless of the justification. For the first time, Chun Wei smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. High Arbiter, with all due respect, your fleets should go home. You don't want to be on the wrong side of this. Is that a threat? The Arbiter asked, his crystalline body flashing with alarm. It's a fact, Chun Wei replied. You've read our history, haven't you? You know what humans are capable of when pushed? We've fought wars that lasted generations. We've burned our own world in conflicts that made no sense. We've committed atrocities that shame us to this day. But we've also learned from every single one of those wars. We've studied violence the way other species study art or philosophy. It's our specialty, our dark gift. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed the current disposition of human military forces. The assembled counselors stared in growing horror at the numbers, at the fleet compositions, at the strategic positions humanity had quietly been taking for weeks. We've been preparing for this since the first colony fell, Chen Wei continued. While you were drafting your peace proposals, we were building warships. While you were negotiating reparations, we were positioning our forces. You think we're being emotional, irrational. You're wrong. This is calculated. This is deliberate. This is justice. High Arbiter Veshkol's form seemed to pale, his usual vibrant refractions becoming washed out. Ambassador Chun, please. There must be another way. The cost in lives, the precedent it would set, the damage to the very fabric of our galactic society. Surely humanity can find it in their hearts to show mercy? Chun Wei gathered her materials, preparing to leave the chamber. You want to know the real difference between humans and the rest of you? We remember. We don't forgive. We don't move on. Ask the descendants of our historical enemies how forgiving we can be. Ask them how many generations it took before we truly let go of our grievances. She walked toward the exit, and paused and looked back at the assembled delegates. The Krell started this war thinking we were weak because we're young. They thought our compassion was weakness. They were wrong. And now, every species in this galaxy is going to learn the same lesson. You don't attack human civilians, ever, because we will make you regret it for 1,000 years. As the doors closed behind her, the council chamber dissolved into panicked debate. The elder species, comfortable in their long peace, suddenly found themselves facing something they had forgotten could exist. A species still young enough to remember how to hate, organized enough to turn that hatred into precision, and powerful enough to mac. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the UESS Retribution, watching the tactical display with the patience of a man who had waited 3 months for this moment. Around him, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their movements practiced and precise. There was no bravado here, no dramatic speeches or rallying cries. This was work, deadly serious work, and everyone knew their role. Admiral, we're receiving another transmission from the Galactic Council Fleet. Commander Yuki Tanaka reported from the communications station. High Arbiter Veshkol himself. He's requesting to speak with you directly. Webb didn't take his eyes off the display. Put him through. The holographic projector shimmered to life, revealing the crystalline form of the High Arbiter. Even through the digital medium, his agitation was visible in the rapid color shifts across his body. Admiral Webb, I implore you to reconsider. Our fleet is positioned between your forces and the Krell homeworld. We cannot allow you to pass. High Arbiter, Webb replied, his voice calm. Your fleet numbers approximately 1,500 ships. We have detailed scans of every vessel. Your most powerful warship, the Eternal Harmonizer, has shields rated for 60 terawatts and carries antimatter torpedoes with a yield of 500 megatons. Am I correct? Vishkol's form flickered with surprise. You've done your homework, Admiral. But surely you see that we outnumber you 3-1. This is not about strength. This is about preventing a terrible mistake. Webb smiled grimly. Let me tell you what we know about galactic warfare, High Arbiter. For 6,000 years, your species and others, like you, have been fighting what you call civilized conflicts, rules of engagement, protected zones, proportional response. It's all very honorable. He leaned forward. But humans have been fighting real wars for our entire history. We know things you've forgotten or never learned. Such as? The Arbiter asked, though uncertainty crept into his translated voice. Such as the fact that your fleet is designed for deterrence, not combat. Your ships are beautiful, High Arbiter. They're works of art, really. But they're not built to take damage. They're built to look impressive and fire warning shots. Webb gestured to his tactical officer, who highlighted specific ships in the Galactic Council Fleet. These 17 vessels are supply ships, poorly retrofitted with weapons. These 32 are diplomatic cruisers with civilian-grade engines. And these 41 are science vessels that you've armed with mining lasers. The High Arbiter's form dimmed noticeably. How could you possibly know such details? Because we've been watching you for 3 months, Webb said. While your council debated and drafted peace treaties, we had intelligence operatives analyzing every ship in your fleet. We know your capabilities better than you do. And respectfully, High Arbiter, you're not prepared for what actual combat looks like. A new voice joined the conversation. Fleet Commander Zalther of the Military Coordination Committee appeared in the hologram beside Veshkol. The massive reptilian being had commanded fleets for 2 centuries and carried himself with the bearing of a warrior. Perhaps the High Arbiter is not prepared, human, but I am. I have studied your species' military history, your petty tribal conflicts and primitive resource wars. Do not mistake our preference for peace as an inability to wage war. Webb nodded respectfully. Commander Zalther, I've read your service record. You commanded the border fleet during the Margath incursion. You've seen real combat. So I'm going to be straight with you. Look at our formation. Really look at it. The display shifted, showing the human fleet arrangement. Commander Zalther's eyes narrowed as he studied the positions, the spacing, the ship classifications. Notice anything unusual? Webb asked. Zalther was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a note of concern. Your fleet is arranged in offensive depth. Your escort carriers are positioned forward, not in the rear. Your support vessels are hardened military designs, not converted civilian craft. And those ships at your flanks, the ones reading as simple cruisers on our scans, they're not cruisers, are they? No, Webb confirmed. They're Q ships, armed merchant vessels designed to look weak on scans. Each one carries enough firepower to eliminate 3 of your largest battleships. We have 47 of them positioned throughout the fleet. This is madness, High Arbiter Veshkol interjected. Commander Zalther, surely our superior numbers will prevail? We must protect the Krell homeworld from this atrocity. But Zalther's expression had grown grim. High Arbiter, I recommend we withdraw the fleet. What? Commander, you cannot be serious. I am deadly serious, Zalther replied. This human admiral has just shown me that they know warfare in a way we have forgotten. They've been preparing for this engagement since before we even assembled our fleet. They know our weaknesses, our ship designs, our tactical doctrines. And they've positioned forces specifically to exploit every single vulnerability. He turned his gaze back to Webb. How many scenarios did you run, Admiral? 73,412, Webb answered. We simulated every possible engagement, every tactical variation, every response you might make. In 68,000 of those scenarios, we defeated your fleet with minimal losses. In the remaining scenarios, we achieved our objectives with acceptable casualties. Acceptable casualties, Veshkol repeated, his form flashing with indignation. You speak of lives as statistics. I speak of reality, Webb countered. High Arbiter, I don't want to fight you. Your people have done nothing to harm humanity. But I have my orders, and those orders are non-negotiable. The Krell homeworld will answer for what they did to our colonies. You can either withdraw your fleet and let us complete our mission, or you can try to stop us. But understand this. If you choose to fight, I will destroy every ship you have. I will do it efficiently, without hesitation, and without mercy. Not because I want to, but because that's what the situation demands. Commander Zalther studied the human admiral for a long moment. You would actually do it, wouldn't you? You would go through us, over our debris, to reach your target. Yes, Webb said simply. We would. The 2 military officers stared at each other across the holographic divide, recognition passing between them. They were both warriors, both understood the calculus of violence. Both knew when bravado ended and reality began. High Arbiter Veshkal seemed to sense the shift in the conversation. Commander Zalthar, I am ordering you to hold position. We cannot abandon our responsibility to protect innocent lives. High Arbiter, Zalthar said carefully, if we engage this fleet, we will lose, badly, and our defeat will not save a single Krell life. It will only add our casualties to theirs. Then what do you suggest? Veshkal demanded. Before Zalthar could respond, Webb held up a hand. High Arbiter, may I offer a compromise? A compromise? Veshkal's form brightened slightly with hope. You would negotiate after all? No, Webb said, crushing that hope immediately. We're not negotiating our objectives. But I am willing to accept observers. Send a delegation aboard our flagship. Let them witness what happens. Let them see that we're not the monsters you think we are. How can you claim not to be monsters when you plan to attack a civilian population? Veshkal challenged. Webb's expression hardened. We're not attacking civilians, High Arbiter. We're attacking the infrastructure that supported genocide. There's a difference, and your observers will see it firsthand. Commander Zalthar's eyes narrowed. What exactly are your targets, Admiral? Military production facilities, Webb listed. Shipyards. Weapons factories. Command and control centers. Government complexes. Strategic resource depots. We have identified 4,733 targets across the Krell homeworld. Every single one is legitimate under any interpretation of warfare. And the civilians near those targets? Veshkal asked. Will be warned, Webb replied. We're already broadcasting evacuation notices in every Krell language and dialect. We're providing detailed maps showing danger zones. We're even offering transport assistance for those who need it. The Krell government has 72 hours to evacuate the target areas. 72 hours? Veshkal's form pulsed with agitation. That's not enough time to evacuate major population centers. It's more warning than they gave our colonies, Webb said coldly. Kepler 442b received 16 minutes notice before the orbital strikes began. New Shanghai got 8 minutes. Ross 128 got no warning at all. 72 hours is generous. The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Finally, High Arbiter Veshkal spoke, his voice weary. And if we refuse to withdraw? If we insist on defending the Krell homeworld? Then, in approximately 47 minutes, when our forward elements enter optimal firing range, we will open fire, Webb stated. Your fleet will be crippled within the first 30 seconds of engagement. Within 2 minutes, 70% of your ships will be combat ineffective. Within 5 minutes, the battle will be over. And then we will proceed to the Krell homeworld and complete our mission over the wreckage of your vessels. Commander Zalthar made a decision. High Arbiter, I am ordering the fleet to withdraw to a distance of 5 million kilometers. We will observe but not interfere. Commander, you cannot. Veshkal protested. I can and I will, Zalthar replied firmly. High Arbiter, you are a diplomat, and a fine one. But the observation deck of the UESS Retribution had been hastily converted to accommodate the diverse physiologies of the Galactic Council delegation. Atmosphere generators created breathable zones for methane breathers. The temperature controls fought to maintain comfortable ranges for both the cryogenic frost call and the superheated Pyrithy. And gravity plates offered 17 different settings across the floor. Ambassador Quellen of the Zephyri Collective stood near the viewing port, their bioluminescent skin pulsing with colors that the humans had learned to read as profound unease. Beside them, the T-Azuraxi counselor Trax scraped his forearms together in a gesture of agitation. 13 other species representatives occupied the space, all watching as the human fleet approached the Krell homeworld. They're actually going to do it, the edge racks clicked. I did not believe they would come this far. A human liaison officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, stood at a central console. The Admiral has authorized me to answer any questions you might have about the operation. Full transparency was promised, and full transparency you'll receive. How can you speak so calmly about what's about to happen? Demanded the Valorian ambassador, their energy form crackling with agitation. You're about to rain destruction on a populated world. Lieutenant Kim pulled up a holographic display. Let me show you what's actually happening. These are the evacuation zones. The display highlighted areas around every target in red. Every Krell citizen within these zones received warnings 68 hours ago. They've had multiple updates since then. We've been broadcasting on every frequency, in every Krell language, including regional dialects and sign languages for the hearing impaired. The display shifted to show real-time feeds from the Krell homeworld. Massive traffic jams clogged the highways leading away from industrial centers. Trains packed with evacuees streamed toward rural areas. Shuttle ports overflowed with civilians desperate to leave the target zones. They're terrified, Quellen observed, their skin shifting to deep blue sadness. They should be, Kim replied without apology. But notice what else is happening. She highlighted different areas of the feed. These convoys here? Those are human supply ships. We're providing food, water, medical supplies, and temporary shelter to evacuation centers. These transport vessels? Also ours. We're offering free passage to anyone who needs to leave the danger zones. Trax leaned closer to the display. You're helping them evacuate? While preparing to destroy their infrastructure. We're not savages, Kim said sharply. We want to break the Krell war machine, not massacre civilians. Every life saved is a success as far as we're concerned. But you will accept civilian casualties, the Luminar delegate stated, their mechanical body whirring softly. Kim's expression hardened. Show me a war where there were no civilian casualties, and I'll show you a fairy tale. Yes, some Krell will die. Some won't evacuate in time. Some will refuse to leave. Some will be in the wrong place at the wrong time. We've done everything reasonably possible to minimize those deaths, but we're not calling off the operation. The observation deck fell silent as the human fleet entered attack range. On the tactical display, the Krell defense fleet scrambled to intercept, but their formations were scattered and disorganized. Why aren't they putting up more resistance? Asked Ambassador Vreeth of the Concordat, a species that communicated through scent but used a translation device. Because their best military minds are dead, Kim explained. The ones who planned the attack on our colonies, the ones who executed the strategy, the admirals and generals who thought massacring civilians was acceptable warfare. We've spent 3 months systematically eliminating them. What's left is second and third tier officers who were never trained for actual combat. You assassinated their military leadership? Quellen's skin flashed with shock. We eliminated enemy combatants who committed war crimes, Kim corrected. There's a difference. Every single person we targeted had direct involvement in planning or executing attacks on civilian populations. We have documentation. We have communication intercepts. We have their own propaganda broadcasts where they bragged about it. On the display, the first human missiles launched. But instead of heading toward the planet, they spread out in a defensive screen. What are those? Trax asked. Point defense satellites, Kim answered. We're establishing a protective network. Any Krell military vessels that try to flee the planet will have to go through that screen. Nothing gets out until we're finished. You're trapping them, the Valorian ambassador said. We're containing them, Kim replied. The Krell military has a bad habit of retreating, regrouping, and striking back when you least expect it. We're not giving them that option this time. The Krell defense fleet engaged the human forward elements. The observers watched as energy beams and missiles exchanged between the forces. But the battle was horrifically one-sided. Human point defense systems intercepted 97% of incoming fire. The few hits that landed dissipated against shield systems that seemed impossibly robust. Meanwhile, human weapons tore through Krell vessels with brutal efficiency. Ships that had once seemed formidable during their rampage through human colonies now crumpled like paper. Explosions blossomed in the vacuum, brief and beautiful and terrible. "It's a slaughter," Quellen whispered, their skin pale with horror. "It's justice," Kim said quietly. "Every one of those ships participated in attacks on our colonies. We know because we tracked them. Fleet designations, ship identification numbers, even individual crew manifests where possible. They're not innocent defenders. They're war criminals who are finally facing consequences." Within 20 minutes, the Krell defense fleet was effectively destroyed. Burning hulks drifted in orbit, escape pods streaming away from the carnage. Human recovery ships moved to collect the pods, much to the observer's surprise. "You're rescuing them?" Trax asked incredulously. "We're taking prisoners," Kim clarified. "They'll stand trial for war crimes. The ones who are innocent will be released. The ones who aren't will face justice. Human justice." The human fleet moved into orbital bombardment position. On the surface of the Krell homeworld, millions watched the sky with dread. The evacuation had been largely successful, but not completely. Some had refused to leave their homes. Others had nowhere to go. Still more simply didn't believe the humans would actually attack. "Admiral," Webb's voice came over the observation deck speakers. "All stations. This is Admiral Webb. Commence Operation Reckoning. All targeting data has been verified. All evacuation timelines have expired. Rules of engagement are active. You may fire when ready." The first strike was surgical. A kinetic impactor, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed, struck the primary military shipyard in the northern hemisphere. The impact released energy equivalent to several nuclear weapons, vaporizing the entire facility in an instant. The shockwave flattened everything within 5 kilometers, but beyond that, carefully calculated distance, the damage dropped off sharply. The precision, Quellen breathed, watching the telemetry. The calculations required to achieve that level of accuracy from orbit. "We've been practicing," Kim said. "Humanity has been dropping things from orbit and hitting specific targets for over 2 centuries. We're very good at it now." More strikes followed. Weapons factories exploded into fireballs. Command bunkers collapsed as bunker-buster munitions penetrated deep underground before detonating. Military bases became craters. Government buildings that had housed the architects of genocide were reduced to rubble. But between the targets, civilian areas remained untouched. The humans were demonstrating something the observers had not fully appreciated: the ability to selectively destroy with incredible precision. A weapons plant would be obliterated, while the residential area, 2 blocks away, suffered nothing more than broken windows. "How is this possible?" the Luminar delegate asked. "The collateral damage is minimal. Your weapons are more precise than anything in the galactic arsenal." Kim pulled up technical specifications. Guided kinetic impactors with terminal guidance systems accurate to within 2 meters. Directed energy weapons with adaptive focusing. AI-assisted targeting that calculates atmospheric conditions, structural weaknesses, optimal impact angles. We didn't develop these weapons for conquest. We developed them because we needed to fight wars on our own planet without destroying everything we were trying to protect. Your species weaponized your own world to this degree? Vreeth's translator conveyed horror. We had wars that lasted decades, Kim said. Wars where both sides had nuclear weapons and chose not to use them because the cost was too high. So we got good at conventional warfare. Really good. Precision became survival. The bombardment continued for hours. The observers watched in fascinated horror as the Krell industrial base was systematically dismantled. Every shipyard capable of building military vessels was destroyed. Every factory that produced weapons was leveled. Every command center was obliterated. Strategic resource depots erupted in massive explosions. Power generation facilities that fed the war machine went dark, but hospitals remained standing. Schools were untouched. Residential zones, even those near military targets, suffered surprisingly minimal damage. Water treatment plants continued operating. Food distribution centers remained functional. The Emergency Galactic Council session convened 36 hours after the bombardment of the Krell homeworld ended. This time, the chamber was packed beyond capacity. Species that rarely attended council proceedings had sent representatives. The military observation wing was filled with fleet commanders and strategic analysts. Even civilian observers crowded the public galleries. Their various forms of communication creating a background noise that the translation Matrix struggled to process. High Arbiter Veshkal stood at the center of the chamber, his crystalline form flickering with colors that indicated deep distress. Beside him, Commander Zalther maintained a more measured presence, his reptilian features unreadable. "We have all seen the reports from our observers aboard the human flagship," Veshkal began. "We have all witnessed what humanity is capable of when they choose to wage war. The question now before this council is simple. What do we do about it?" Ambassador Chun Wei sat in the human delegation area, her posture relaxed but her eyes alert. She had not spoken yet, content to let the council debate itself into exhaustion before she made her position clear. "They must be sanctioned," declared the T-Hexaraxi counselor, his mandibles clicking with agitation. "Expelled from the council. Their trade agreements revoked. Their ships denied access to council space. What they did was barbaric, regardless of their claimed precision." Barbaric? A new voice cut through the chamber. Ambassador Corvin of the Dralix Collective, a species that had remained silent throughout the crisis, rose from their seat. The Dralix resembled large bears with 6 limbs and were known for their blunt communication style. "I have reviewed the same reports you have, Counselor Trax. The humans destroyed the Krell military machine with remarkable restraint. They could have sterilized that world. Instead, they left the civilian population largely intact." "Largely intact?" Trax responded. 15,000 Krell civilians died in that bombardment, and 47 billion humans died in the Krell attacks, Corvin shot back. "The proportionality that the humans showed is actually remarkable. If we had suffered such losses, I suspect the Krell homeworld would be an asteroid field right now." The chamber erupted in argument. Species divided into camps, some condemning humanity's actions, others quietly admitting that the response, while harsh, was understandable. Through it all, Chun Wei remained silent, watching and listening. Finally, Ambassador Quellen of the Zephyri Collective stood, their bioluminescent skin pulsing with colors that demanded attention. The chamber gradually quieted. "I was aboard the human flagship," they said. "I watched the entire operation. I have something to show you all." The central holographic display activated, showing footage from the bombardment. But these weren't the tactical overlays or strategic summaries. These were ground-level recordings from the Krell homeworld itself. The first recording showed a Krell family evacuating their home near a military factory. Human drones hovered nearby, their speakers broadcasting directions in Krell language, guiding the family to safety. When the father stumbled and fell, the drone descended and projected a holographic map showing the nearest medical station, then waited until the family was moving again before returning to its patrol. The second recording showed a human supply convoy distributing food and water to an evacuation center. Krell civilians, terrified and confused, were being treated by human medical personnel. A young Krell child, separated from their parents, was being comforted by a human soldier who was using a translation device to help reunite the family. The third recording was the most striking. It showed the moment when a precision strike destroyed a weapons factory. The camera angle captured not just the explosion, but the residential area beyond it. Windows shattered from the shockwave, but the buildings remained standing. People were knocked down but not killed. And within minutes, human medical drones were flooding the area, checking on civilians, providing first aid. "This is what I witnessed," Quellen said softly. Humans who were prosecuting a war of revenge, but who still took time to show mercy to their enemy civilians. They could have killed millions. They chose not to. They could have been indiscriminate. They chose precision. They could have shown cruelty. They showed discipline. They still killed 15,000 civilians, Trax insisted, but his voice had lost some of its earlier conviction. "Yes, they did," Quellen agreed. "And I watched Lieutenant Kim's face when those casualty reports came in. She looked sick. Every human officer I observed appeared genuinely distressed by civilian deaths. They didn't celebrate them. They treated each one as a failure, not a success." High Arbiter Veshkal's form shifted through several colors before settling on a dim amber. "Ambassador Quellen, are you suggesting we should not sanction humanity for this action?" "I am suggesting," Quellen replied carefully, "that we need to understand what actually happened before we make judgments. The humans didn't commit genocide. They dismantled a military threat while attempting to minimize civilian casualties. Is it brutal? Yes. Is it harsh? Absolutely. But is it the act of monsters, or the act of a species defending itself the only way it knows how?" Commander Zalther stepped forward. "If I may address the council?" When Veshkal gestured permission, he continued. "I have spent the last 36 hours analyzing the human military operation in detail. I have compared it to every major military action in recorded galactic history. I have studied their tactics, their precision, their restraint, and I have reached a conclusion that many of you will not want to hear." The chamber fell silent, waiting. "By every measurable standard," Zalther said, "the human assault on the Krell homeworld was one of the most professionally executed military operations in galactic history. The precision was unprecedented. The collateral damage was minimized to a degree I did not think possible. And most importantly, they achieved their strategic objectives completely. The Krell can no longer wage aggressive war. Not for decades, possibly not for centuries." "You're praising them?" Trax demanded in disbelief. "I'm stating facts," Zalther replied. "As a military commander, I can recognize professional competence even when I disagree with the strategic decision. The humans promised surgical precision. They delivered it. They promised to minimize civilian casualties. They succeeded. They promised documentation and transparency. They provided both." He paused. "And now they're demanding something that we, as a council, should have demanded ourselves." "What do you mean?" asked the Luminar delegate. "The humans have demanded that the Krell government surrender all individuals responsible for planning and executing attacks on civilian populations," Zalther explained. "They want war crimes trials. They want accountability. Is this not what our own laws require?" Murmurs spread through the chamber. The commander had struck at an uncomfortable truth. The Galactic Council had protocols for war crimes, but those protocols were rarely enforced with any real vigor. High Arbiter Veshkal's form flickered with conflicted colors. The humans have taken justice into their own hands. They've bypassed our legal systems, our diplomatic processes, our entire framework for conflict resolution. "Because your framework failed?" Chun Wei said, standing for the first time. All attention shifted to her. High Arbiter, with respect, your system failed to prevent the Krell from massacring 47 billion human civilians. It failed to respond with anything more than sanctions and sternly worded condemnations. It failed to deliver justice or accountability. So yes, we took matters into our own hands, and we'll keep doing so until your system actually works. You cannot simply ignore 6,000 years of galactic law. Veshkal protested. Watch us, Chenwei replied. Your 6,000 years of galactic law didn't protect our people. It didn't deter the Krell. It didn't prevent genocide. So tell me, High Arbiter, what good is it? The chamber erupted again, but Chenwei spoke over the noise. Let me tell you what's going to happen now. In 36 hours, the deadline we gave the Krell government expires. They will either turn over the war criminals we've demanded, or we will go get them ourselves. And this time, we won't be as careful about avoiding collateral damage. You would return to the Krell homeworld? Veshkal asked, his form paling. You would assault it again? We would extract the individuals responsible for murdering our people, Chenwei corrected. If the Krell government cooperates, nobody else needs to die. If they don't cooperate, well, that's their choice. Ambassador Corvin stood again. Ambassador Chun, what happens after you get these war criminals? What are your plans for them? Trials, Chenwei said simply. Public trials. We'll present evidence, allow them to mount a defense, and render judgment based on the facts. Those found guilty will be punished according to the severity of their crimes. Those found innocent will be released. And you expect us to believe you'll conduct fair trials? Trax challenged Chenwei pulled up a holographic display. These are the trial protocols we've developed. They're based on the Nuremberg trials, the International Criminal Court, and various other historical precedents from human history. We're not interested in show trials or summary executions. We want real accountability, documented for history. She expanded the display to show thousands of pages of legal documentation. We've identified every individual by name, rank, and role. We H,